Welcome everyone to our weekly Torah learning of spreading more light into the world. We always like to start off with giving because how we give, that's how Hashem will give to us. Let's give generously, so Hashem will give generously. I'm going to put a couple of coins in the tzedakah box. We're doing this in merit for the complete refuah shlema for Chana Yenta Rivka Bas Shindel, Chana Bela Bas Devora, Yosef ben Devora Leah, Razel Bas Hadass, Rafal Chaimer ben Sima Chasha, Devora Leah Bas Yafa Liba, Moshe Yehuda ben Golda, and everybody that needs. We're including you. We do this weekly in merit for the release, and I hope by the time you're all watching this, because this is a pre-recording, all the hostages will be home with their families. We pray for them every single week for the hostages to return. And we do this for the Chayalim, for the IDF, for the soldiers, for the men and women who are so brave and they are legit tzaddikim. I'm going to mention two names of people I personally know, but we're including everyone in this incredible unit of helping bring more light into the world and getting rid of darkness. So I'm doing this in honor of Rafael ben Devora Leah. He is now in Rafah. He's my cousin's son. If everyone can please have him in mind. He's a commander, an incredible person, and he is taking care of what needs to be taken care of, and he's bringing home the hostages. I know it, and I feel it. We're doing this also in honor of Shalom Dover ben Basya Peril, and again, we're including all the Chayalim in this. I do this class weekly in memory of my dear grandmother, Rivka Dina Bas Yosef Yehuda. I hope you're proud. Also in memory of my dear great uncle, Chaim Dober ben Betzalel. To save a life is saving many, and he saved many lives in Soviet Union. And I'm also doing this in honor of my other grandmother who passed away this year, Bela Bas Betzalel. All your neshama should have the highest aliyah. We're going to do Psalm Chaf for the hostages and for the safety of our brothers and sisters around the entire world, in Israel and all over. And we should just see light, and Hashem should protect us always. So while I'm saying Tehillim, there's a custom. The Rebbe said, the Lubavitcher Rebbe said that when you put tzedakah and do Tehillim at the same time, it is very, very powerful. So I'm going to do that from home. And the Alter Rebbe and the Baal Shem Tov, the Tzemach Tzedek and the Baal Shem Tov both said, if you only knew what Tehillim did, you would recite it day and night. So let's do this together. Lam Natseach Mizmar LeDavid Yancha Adonai B'Yam Sarah Yisagevcha Shem Elehei Yaakov Yishlach Ezracha Mikodesh Umitzian Yisadecha Yiskar Kol Min Chaysecha Ve'elascha Yidash Nasela Yitain Lecha Chelvavevcha V'Chol Atzascha Yimalei Niranena B'Shuasecha U'B'Shem Eloheinu Nidgal Yimalei Adonai Kol Mishalasecha Ata Yadaiti Ki Ashi Adonai Mishicha Yanehu Mishmei Kachai B'Gvorai Sisha Yiminai Ela Baracha V'Ela Basusim V'Anachnu B'Shem Adonai Eloheinu Naskir Hema Karu V'Nafalu V'Anachnu Kamnu B'Nisaydad Adonai Hashia Amelach Yanenu V'Yim Karenu. We should hear incredible news. I'm so excited to introduce to you our guest speaker today, who I feel very honored because we are also related from both sides, from my dad's side and from her husband's side. And my grandmother, she has both names of the family, the Chen name and then the Minkwitz name. And she's an incredible person who went through a lot in her life. And I'm going to share a few words with you. Hadassah Chen married to Yossi Chen, who is now a reservist in the IDF. Hashem should protect him always. A journalist, and has a talk show called Real Talk with Hadassah Chen on Arutz 7, Israel National News, and has a column in the Jerusalem Post. Today, she's going to share about her daughter, who is no longer with us today, who impacted the world in her short years. And I'm excited for all you to hear how to deal with loss and pain and how to be able to function and continue. And we are dedicating this class in memory of her her dear daughter, and she's going to share her full name. So I'm going to ask Hadassah to please share with us today your daughter's name. So her neshama should have the highest aliyah. We should see her again so soon with the coming of Mashiach. And it says that when one passes away, they can't do mitzvahs anymore, but we can do it for them. So today we're dedicating this entire class and your talk to your special daughter that will bring her great merits, because she's going to bring a lot of comfort to many. So I'm going to ask you to unmute yourself. Welcome,
Hi,
Hadassah.
thank you so much for having me. It's an honor. Finally, we made it. And yes, we are related. And it's so refreshing, you know, to get to know cousins that we don't know so well. And, you know, I see the way you do your things and your classes, and it's great to come together for good things and doing good things. So again, thank you so much for inviting me. And the full name of my daughter is Nava Ruth Bat Yosef, which is my husband's name. And I'm so honored for what you said. And it's so funny because I was thinking of how you presented me. Like you've been through a lot in your life. And after all that has happened in the past year in Israel, my life seems like a ride in the park of what's going on here. You know, suddenly we are surrounded by so many heroes here and so many insane stories that my story becomes, you know, but at the same time, you know, each one to its own. And at the beginning, when you asked me to speak, I thought to myself, what do I have to say? There's so much going on right now, you know, between the hostages and the hostages who have been returned with their stories, and the heroes and the soldiers and mothers of soldiers. And it's just too much, you know. And I interview myself all the time, people who have incredible stories that I feel like, you know, like nobody. And it's, and when I go back to myself and I think to myself, what do I have to say? Well, what do I have to share? You know, before the war, I was going around and talking and saying my stories, and now I feel so like little and so. But at the same time, like you said, when you lose a child, you know, you lose a child. It's something that goes against nature. You're not supposed to bury your own children. So, you know, I just saw something that it makes so much sense. I saw this line that says, "One day you will tell your story of how you overcame what you went through, and it will be someone else's survival guide." So I thought, you know what? If this can help even one person to strengthen them, whatever they're going through, then I've done my job. And like you said, you know, not to drag it for too long, but basically, I grew up in a beautiful life, a fantastic life where I never thought that, you know, when you grew up very, you know, protected in this beautiful family in Italy, my grandparents, and, you know, they had this beautiful home. And I always thought that, you know, life revolves around us and, you know, just living in a bubble, very much, very protected by my parents, you know, vacations. I never knew what it means, you know, like you know, it was just beautiful. And um, yes, I'm saying this because it's going to make you understand this later. I always wanted to work something that has to do with films or cameras or journalism. I wasn't sure exactly, but I always remember that when I would tell my parents, they would laugh and say, yeah, okay, fine, you know, whatever, you know, just we'll see. And then when I was, I don't know, 15, I said to my parents, can I go to film school? And they told me, yeah, okay, just finish school. And then when I finished school, I said, can I go now? And they said, you know what, go to SEM. So I went to SEM, to Israel. And then after SEM, I came back and said, can I do this now? And my parents told me, you know what, just get married. But that wasn't so quick. Like it was thought. I wasn't following exactly the, you know, the typical way. So it took a little longer. And it's true, my husband did take care of that, because I remember when I used to go out on dates with you know, boys, Chabad boys, and they would tell me, what do you want to do? And I would say, like, you know, I want to be in filming. I'm talking about 20 years ago, if not more. 20, because yeah, more than 20. they would tell me, oh, okay. And 5 minutes later, I was taken back home. And when I told my husband that I want to do this, he told me, okay, so go learn, go do it professionally. So I thought, okay, here's somebody listening to me. You always have to find the person who listens to you. And I started, of course, learning and everything, thinking, life was going to be always a bubble. And yes, it wasn't easy how I got married, because my two younger sisters got married before me. And, in our world of shidduchim, it's not super easy when, your youngest sisters get married before. They always say right away. And I'm sure some of the women out there have gone through something like that, or are going through, like, what's wrong with me? Or they say, what's wrong with her? When there's absolutely nothing wrong with her. You're just different personality who's not super, made to get married at 22, 23, whatever it is. So it took a little longer, but thank God I found Mamash, the guy, the prince, who was actually in the army at the time. And he still is. That's the funny thing, right? As of now, he's as a reservist. And we got married. There's actually a funny story, because it has to be also with your grandmother's brother, who is my husband's grandfather, is actually a big part of how he was a fantastic man, David Chen. I'm sure you remember him. So he had a little stand in the airport. This is a very funny story. He had a little stand, which now doesn't exist anymore. It's much bigger, but it used to be like in the old terminal in Ben Gurion. He had a little stand where he would put on tefillin, and he was like an older man. Everybody knew him. He was very tall, and he would stand the whole day and just waiting for people to come by and tell them, do you want to put on tefillin? And because we're related, like our families know each other from far. I'm not saying I'm related to my husband. We're probably fourth cousins or something. But I remember that I went out with my husband to be in the summer, like the typical story of the chayal, the soldier, the cute guy, and I was like the tourist, and they introduced us, and of course he's in uniform, tall, gun, whatever. But then we broke up, and I was heartbroken. I couldn't get over it. And we're going back from Israel. Basically, I'm heartbroken, and I'm going through Ben Gurion, and I'm just crying. And I'm with my parents, and my father sees your great grandfather, and he says hello to him.
My great uncle.
Uncle, sorry, you're right, sorry. Your great uncle, and he says hello to him. They say hello to each other, speaking Yiddish, and I'm in the meantime standing there crying. I'm like a big woman standing there crying. It looks a bit weird. So, I don't know if you remember, he was very direct, and he's like, why is she crying? And my father, who else also is not super tact, mister, he says, well, you know why he's crying? Because your grandson just left her, just dropped her. And he goes, which grandson? And my father said, Yossi. So he said, Yaska, let me handle this. and and I was always used to wear sunglasses on my head before I wore a wig. And I had this pair of sunglasses. So he tells me, when all the visitors come and they stop a second, whether I'm giving them candles or they're putting on film, they put on their sunglasses on the counter. Very often they forget it. So I have a whole collection of fancy sunglasses in my Chabad home, Versace, Gabbana, doesn't even know how you say it. And he sees that I'm wearing sunglasses, this fox of a man. And he tells me, give me your sunglasses. I'll get them back to you. And there they came back because we got married. So it's
Wow,
a lot.
that's so great.
Yeah, just a little cute note. But yes, we did get married. And of course, I moved right away to Israel, where it wasn't easy at the beginning because my husband was in the army the whole day and I wasn't speaking Hebrew well. And I was home alone, waiting for him from morning to night. Sometimes he wouldn't even come home at night. And I think that was very good looking back, because that's how I learned how to, make it on my own. I was very nostalgic, very homesick. I wanted to be back in Italy. I hated Israel. I hated everything about Israel. I didn't like the system. I didn't like the people. I thought everybody was aggressive. I didn't like the jukim. I didn't like anything. I wanted to go back to Italy, go to have my coffee in town, go to have my shopping. Nothing was similar to what was going on in Israel. And thank God I got pregnant right away. And I had Elka, which is my oldest, who just turned 19, thank God. And then I had Muthia, who is my second, and she just turned 15. And then I got pregnant again. And I remember that I went to take an ultrasound and I asked, what's the sex of the baby? And they told me it's a girl. And I wanted so much a boy at that point that I remember that I left and I called my husband crying. He said, it's another girl. And he was shocked because are you mad? It doesn't matter. Like, if I think why I'm saying it is because looking back, I'm thinking to myself, how silly we are, like you can't, these are the mistakes you make on the way. And of course, she was born in August, which is actually in the summer now. So it's great that we're talking about her now. And when she was about 16 months, I remember I took her to the doctor because she had some kind of, my husband told me, go take her. There's something that I feel in the back that I don't know, it doesn't make really, not comfortable with it. Go to the doctor. So I took her to the doctor, but just like, very, very relaxed. I took her to my doctor that I know very well. And I'm just like, busy with all the things I still have to do for the rest of the day. I'm not even putting attention. She's watching her, she's checking her. And suddenly she's a woman. She looks at me and she goes, Hadassah, what are you going from here? And I said, well, I have pickups, I have carpool, I have swimming, like typical. And she goes, just cancel everything, get your friends to do this and run to Shaare Zedek, which is the main hospital. And I said, why? My husband was in the army. I couldn't even reach him. And she said, just go. So when I heard her tone, I got a bit nervous. And I said, fine. So I took Navi and we went to the hospital. I wasn't even speaking Hebrew well at the time. Like I wasn't really understanding exactly all, those doctors' informations. And as soon as they got there, they sent me from one ultrasound to this to there to another room. And I was like schlepping her from one room to the other. And I don't know where I'm going. And I hear people talking in front of me and behind me. It was just like very, very nerve-wracking. Finally, after a few hours, I was sitting in a room and this doctor came in. He was wearing like kippah. And, Israelis are very direct. There's no, and he tells me, is your husband here? I said, no. And he says, okay, sit down. I said, okay. And he goes, well, your daughter has a gush. Gush, I didn't know what it is. I said, what does it mean? And he goes, tumor. And I said, what do you mean tumor? She's 16 months. How can she have a tumor? She goes, yeah. I was very naive and and he goes, it's called neuroblastoma. It starts usually with very common by children under the 2-year-old. And that's it. We have to start. So you should get your husband together to come here and we're going to start. And I remember that in that moment, like everything froze. And I thought to myself, this is not possible. And I remember that I called my mother, how silly I am. And I told her, Mommy, can you please Google neuroblastoma? Like the worst thing you can do when you hear about something. My husband came finally a few hours later. And the moment he came in, he saw right away my expressions. He understood something very bad was happening. And, we just hugged the three of us. And from that moment on, we were thrown into a complete different world. We were taken to Hadassah in Karim, which is the main hospital, the 5th floor, which is oncology, children's oncology. And remember, I told you that I was coming. That's why I was giving you my background of, fluffy, fun life. And suddenly I am I'm 36 years old, and I am thrown into the worst floor ever. You come there and you see children suffering, children who cannot be helped, that look terrible. And I remember they were giving us this tour of the floor, and I thought to myself, this is not going to happen to my daughter. Of course, well, this is not going to be, like you're just blocking everything. And I remember by the end of the tour, there was this girl who had like literally gray skin. And I looked at the father, he had a big long beard, and I said, what's wrong with her? And he said, neuroblastoma. And I literally blacked out. It was like, I think it was the end of the day also. I was exhausted. I hadn't slept. And when they helped me, whatever, and I remember my husband telling me at a certain point, listen, it's not going to be easy. It's going to be a fight, but either we fight or we fight. Okay, from now on, we're going to be strong. We're going to be smiling in front of our daughter. We're not going to cry. And you have to be strong. You don't have any other choice. And I promise you, it's really something that everybody says, oh, how you're amazing. No, you get it from like Hashem gives you that strength suddenly. It wasn't me. I started becoming something that I wasn't because it's your child. You start doing things that you are not, it's not yourself. And she had surgery, then she went through chemotherapy, and she started losing her hair, and she looked like all those kids that I never thought she would look like. What can I tell you, Chaya? We lived for 1 year in that hospital, basically. My mother came to live with us, which is a great blessing because I had 2 other kids at home. And my mother said, the kids need you too. So I'm going to come and I'm going to stay in the hospital at night so you can be home with the kids. And this was an incredible blessing. My father also was coming back and forth, but my father also had to be home for work. And my mother became actually very, very close to my daughter. And you'll see in the video that you're going to see in the end, you'll understand. They had a very special relationship. But what I'm telling you is that this year, maybe it was the hardest year of my life, but it changed completely my whole being. There's the pre-Hadassah and the after Hadassah that has become. I remember telling my mother at the beginning that this hospital is like the furthest place from God. After 1 year of being there and seeing what I saw, I said to my mother, this is the closest place to God. Because you literally see the hand of God every day. You see kids who look healthy, and suddenly you come back the next day and their bed is empty. You see kids who are sick and they are there and they survive. And you said, God picks and chooses. And from the beginning, I totally closed myself up. I remember friends wanted to come visit me, people, and I totally put walls around me. I just had my mother, my sisters, my husband. Nobody was allowed to speak to me, to see me. My pain was my pain. I don't want your pity. I don't want your anything. And also the other mothers of the other children who were there, they were trying to speak to me. Nobody, I was a wall. And then suddenly you have no choice. You have no choice. And I remember those long nights. I don't know how it's in America, but in Israel, even if your child is sick, you're sharing a room. There is a curtain in the middle. And you hear what other people are going through, other families. And because you hear them at night, because you're not sleeping. And I would hear in the middle of the night, families. I had only 2 girls at home. And thank God I had the blessing of my parents and my husband's parents helping us. We both had to stop working. There's, if you don't have any other way of economically to be helped, it's very, very hard. The families that I could see had 10, 7, 6 kids. One is sick. Both parents they have to stop working. There's no money. And I could hear them speaking at night, like, how are we going to buy food for Shabbos, things like that. And I was so shocked at what was going on. And Navi became friendly with all these other kids who were sick. There's a children's room, there's a playroom, that's their second home. And we started becoming friends. I started becoming friends with women. There was a woman from Mea Shearim who had a triplet, and one of the girls was sick. And we would have long conversation at night, which actually was very, very funny because we would talk about everything. And she would tell me, oh, you Chabad, you're hardly religious. And I would tell her, how do you live with your imposing and everything? And I found a complete world that I didn't even know, that they're actually a lot of fun. And they're very open-minded. I would ask her like provocative questions on purpose, and she would know how to answer me very well. We became good friends. And there were also a lot of Arab children. And I'm not saying how I would react now, because now I'm completely different. I seriously hate them all. I'm sorry to say it. It's just too much. Just hearing the language, me as an Israeli who lives here now, it's too much. But before, I'm talking about 10 years ago, things that the media doesn't show, we were all together. The secretary of Hadassa and Karen was an Arab woman, and Navi loved her, and she would play with her all the time. And she had an Arab friend who came from a little village who probably ready to, he's probably a terrorist by now. I wouldn't be surprised. and he was cured and looked after from my doctor, who was a woman, Dr. Iris. I was very close to her. The same way she looked after me, she looked after him. And I remember Shabbos, and we would spend Shabbos in the hospital. Also, what I saw there in that hospital, there was a long corridor, and the Arabs were on one side and us Jews were on the other side. We would celebrate Shabbos. They would do their own things, pray, with their, on the floor, and we were very much together. We were very much, helping each other. Also between us Jews, Hasidim, non-religious, Kippah Soga, we were all together exactly like we should be now. There was no barriers. When your child is sick, we're all the same. There's no, the language is the same. We're feeling the same. So we were, they were the family of Mesharim. They used to bring all their silver, the costs and the thing to recreate the Shabbos atmosphere in the hospital, and they would sing, and then the Kippah Soga would be telling their stories. It was just beautiful, and it was tough, I must say. We had also very low moments, and I'm sharing this because I think now it can help. I remember Shabbat afternoon, also a relationship between a husband and a wife. When you're going through something so big, I remember the doctor when the doctor would brief us every 2 days, and she warned us and she told us, I'm sorry to tell you, we saw a lot of marriages being broken after this because there's so much tension, there's so much pain that you don't know how to, the situation completely changes. But we've seen also a lot of couples who become closer. So I'm just telling you this. And I remember feeling this on my own skin, me and Yossi had a beautiful love story, and everything was perfect and magic. And I remember that was a very, very heavy test for us. There were moments that I thought to myself, how am I going to hold on to this? I am a very open person. I had to let out my feelings. That's actually what started my career, because I started writing on Facebook what I was going through, and I was getting a lot of feedback, which was helping me actually more than me helping others. And this is how I found my great love for writing, which I always had hidden, but this brought it out. And Yassi was somebody that was keeping everything inside, and he didn't want to share anything. His pain was all inside, which was very hard for me. And I remember one Shabbos, I said to myself, I was also very, very overweight because I was frustrated. You're sitting in a hospital basically the whole day. They're feeding you the whole time. There's all kind of organization. Thank God, this is incredible in Israel. They're coming to help you, to give you with the kids, with the siblings, the Zichron Menachem, which became very close to. They help with the siblings. They took my children. They took them after school programs. Incredible. They bring you food. It's unreal what goes on in the hospital. The chesed it's also very incredible, eye-opening for me. Even though at the beginning I was like saying no to everybody, at the end you just become again also one big family with all of them. But I remember at a certain point I saw myself, we didn't have any money because my husband was in the army and I wasn't working at the time, and we had my parents and his parents who were, supporting us basically. And I had no self-esteem because I was overweight. I had very, very difficult moments where I lacked faith. When you lack faith in such a moment, it's mind blowing, And I looked at my daughters and I said, how can I be with them? I don't know what to give them. My two daughters needed me and I didn't have any more strength. I had to follow Navi and I was falling apart. I was literally falling apart. And I remember one Shabbos afternoon, I said, what do you want from me? Like, what do you want from me? My marriage is falling apart. I'm overweight. I have no money on the side. My kids need me. I don't know what to do. My child is dying. I literally don't know what to do. And it's like really when you're on the bottom You get somebody who really literally picks you up. You feel it. You do have to make, like they say, you do have to make a keli for the brachas to come in. So I guess there was a little keli that I had prepared that I didn't even know. And brachas started coming in slowly, but I would see them only later on. Navi got better. We even managed to go to Venice that Pesach with my parents. It was a stunning, beautiful Pesach, which I will never forget. And they told us that basically she looks like she's clean, but we have to wait. This was April. We came back. She had another operation and looked like everything was okay. And she was going already back to kindergarten, which was a special kindergarten, but still she was going out. She was happy. She was an incredible child, very, very strong, very, very strong character. And oops. And I remember Sukkot, which is September. Suddenly I saw something in her eye that I didn't like. It looked like an infection. And I said to my husband, go take her to the doctor because it looks like there's an infection in her eye. And he just went, and he called me from the hospital and said, you have to come here. And from his voice, I knew something desperate had happened. And I ran to the hospital, and they told us that basically came back. And it came back in the back of her eye. So it hit it before you couldn't see anything. Now it was hitting her face. So slowly her whole eye was like dropping. Like her eyes were not aligned anymore. Slowly it wasn't pretty. Although for me she was beautiful. Now I look at the pictures. And it was very, very strong, the comeback. Like very, very strong. And this was September. We had to get her back into hospital right away, start a very strong round of chemotherapy. And December, the first night of Hanukkah, Navi left this world. And I remember the night before, the 2 days before she left, she died on Sunday morning, which was the first night of Hanukkah. Now, Navi's name is Navarut, and the initials of Navarut make the word Ner, which is candle. And she left us on the first candle of Hanukkah. And I remember that on Friday, they had a big meeting, the doctors, to understand whether they had to give another strong dosage of chemotherapy or not. And everybody was yes, no, against it. We didn't know what to do until it was decided that she was going to get it. And we went to the hospital on Friday, and she got this very strong dose. And she was supposed to stay in hospital. And I don't know, as a mother, I had this feeling that even though I never ever thought this was going to happen, which is great because now I see how my naiveness made me sane. I remember that I asked my doctor, Iris, I said, can I bring her home for Shabbos? And Iris looked at me and she goes, you know what? Take her home. And we took her home, and they sent a nurse with us. And it's so funny because I haven't spoken about this in so long. I've just been listening to tragedies, and I never went back to this long time. And we took her home, and this nurse came with us, and she stayed with us the whole Shabbos. And Navi wasn't walking anymore. She was basically an extension of my body for the past month. She was living on me. The only time that I wasn't with her is when I had to go to the bathroom. She was sleeping on me, breathing on me. Everything was on me. She didn't want anybody else. Nobody could touch her. Nobody. And this nurse was very nice. And the night before, which was Motzei Shabbos, she comes to me. She's not a religious nurse, and she tells me, Hadassah, don't you know it's the first night of candles of Hanukkah? You're not lighting, which I totally forgot and couldn't care less. She goes, it's Hanukkah. You have to light candles. My parents were not there that time. My mother had just left. She usually was always with us. This was also a very interesting thing. We were basically on our own. And she went out and she came back with candles for Hanukkah. And we lit together, me, my husband, and this nurse. And I was sitting with my daughter, holding her the whole time, just talking, and she was sitting with me. And I don't know how I started talking about Navi's birth to the nurse. And after, she told me that she's the nurse who's usually assigned to very hard cases, and she sees, the last moments of children. And she said that it's something psychological, that when the mother starts talking about the birth of a child, it's because she feels she's losing. But this she told me after, thank God. Literally the whole night, I went through the birth of Navi with this nurse. And in the morning, by 7 o'clock, I literally could not keep my eyes open anymore. So I told my husband, you know what, I'm just going to go to sleep for just 10 minutes, wake me up in 10 minutes. And they put Navi to sleep because at that point she was already suffering. She was crying. And I begged them not to put her to sleep because I want her, real. But my husband begged me, please just put her to sleep because she's just crying. So they put her to sleep in her bed. And I went to sleep. And then at 10 o'clock, my husband woke me up. And he said, you have to come to her. And I woke up at 10 o'clock. I went to her bed. I put my hand on her heart and I could see her and caress her. And she literally, I felt her heart stopping under my hands. I literally, it was something crazy. Like, if I look back, it was crazy. It's like seeing her last breath. We said Shema, and it was just crazy. And I don't think I realized right away because I started, sort of when I remember that I started screaming. So, everybody came in, the nurse, whatever. Then I don't remember well what happened. I just remember that I was just there sitting. I didn't want to leave her. I was just holding her face the whole time, like this. And I didn't want to take the hand off. Then, of course, the police had to come, people started coming and I want to tell you something, which is a bit creepy, but it's also incredible. 2 years before I lost Navi, my good friend Hindel, Swordlove, lost her own daughter in a car accident, and I went to her shiva, and there were a lot of people, and she came over to me and she showed me a letter of the Rebbe that they found between all the letters they were looking through of the Rebbe's strengthening people through Shiva. They saw a letter that the Rebbe wrote to the Zippel family, which is my mother's family. And the Rebbe is talking about how to behave during Shiva. This is a letter that the Rebbe wrote 30 years ago for my grandfather's Shiva of his brother. They were very close. And she showed it to me. She said, I think this letter belongs to you. And I see the letter and I said, yeah, it is my family, my mother's family. They used to, my grandfather had a very close relationship with the Rebbe. There were a lot of letters between them. I said, yeah, it must be one of those letters. And it's about Shiva. So I said, yeah, very nice. But, I'm not sitting Shiva. I almost wanted to distance myself, yeah, fine. Anyway, 2 years later, I lost my daughter. So Hindle came to me and back with this letter. And she said, this belongs to you now. And when she gave it to me, I realized that this letter was written 30 years ago, for sure. It was written for my grandfather, but it was written for me. Because when I held it and I read it the first day of Shiva, it's not easy to get up and, to sit on a morning waking up after you just buried your daughter on Hadassah team, and people starting to come to you. And yes, I'm going to share this letter actually. I'm going to send it to you. I'm sorry. I'm going to send you this letter, it's a letter. The Rebbe basically writes in this letter, which I'm going to show you, writes this letter how to behave during Shiva and how after 7 days I'm getting shivers. You have to get up and let the neshama go. It's time to get up and go back, which is not easy to do. But I don't know, this letter gave me so much strength that I literally went around 7 days in Shiva with this plastic thing with the letter inside. And I would never separate myself from this letter. It was like going with us everywhere. And I felt so much strength from this. And I thought to myself, I remember during Shiva, people were coming to me crying and I was laughing. I don't think I had processed everything. I remember that I didn't want people to start having pity on me like I used to behave in the hospital. The same thing I would behave, maybe because for me, Navi was so precious. And so, she was still with me. I always say that Navi left, she was a light when she was alive. She was very strong, like going through all these exams and chemotherapy and everything. I don't know how she did it. And the same thing is when she left. When I told you that moment when her heart stopped beating under my hand, I promise you there was light. It's weird to say. And that light she left is the light that leads me every single day till now. It's almost 11 years till now. It changed my personality, my behavior. Everything became something to make this soul of mine that's now up there happy. Everything I do is to make her proud. After Shiva, after 7 days, I remember I was lying on the couch one day, which is mostly what I managed to do for the first week after, because you're pretty broken. And I remember it was raining outside. And from my window, I could see Hadassah, where she's buried from far. And I could not sleep because it was raining and I knew she was there. And I kept on saying, she's cold. It's horrible. I couldn't sleep. And I realized that I have to let this go. I can't. That's it. Her neshama is up and that's it. It's finished. And her neshama is okay. And that's what I understood. Okay, you have to get up and you have to start a new Hadassah. And remember all my dreams of becoming filmmaking and everything, which I completely put on the side, that's it, my life is finished, I'm in the hospital, I'm overweight, all these things that I told you. It's like I pulled everything back together, like I took all the different pulls that I was getting from all sides, and I said, I have to pull myself back together. Is that okay? I see. Okay. I'm just saying this not to brag, absolutely, but to give strength to those who have gone through something very big and feel broken and they can't start again. I remember when Navi was sick, she had this song that she loved, which was God, I forgot it. It's very from Shweki. I forgot the title. It's gonna come to me, but you're gonna see it in the clip anyway. But she had this song that she loved, and every time I would put the song on, she would calm down. So it became her song. So I remember we were in the hospital once, and Yaakov Shweki, who at the time was, still is, but at the time he was like the big star, came to the hospital to visit the children. So they asked me, do you want him to come and see or whatever? And at the beginning I thought, oh, whatever, yes, this, he wants to come and show that he is. But actually he was really nice because Navi was in isolation in that moment. So only one person could be there. So there were no people seeing this act of goodness. He really did it out of, mamash from his heart. And we took him to see her. And Yesimcha is the song she loved. And he started singing her this song. And whatever, we became friends. He took very much Navi's story to his heart. When Navi passed away, this was December, a month later, he came to Israel and he made a big concert and in Nokia Theater, it's like one of the first big concerts. And he dedicated this song to Navi. I remember everybody was calling me after, I was at the concert, he dedicated this song. I didn't even know about it. So I remember that when Navi passed away, we went to a concert after with my girls who actually really liked him. And, they got us backstage just to see him, to say hello, whatever. And talking about, grabbing the moment, I remember I had to start my life again somehow, And he was right there, and literally he was like almost about to go on stage. They were already calling him. And a clip of one of his songs had just come out, and I didn't like it at all. So as he's going, I said, by the way, you know that clip that just came out of, I think it was Cry No More? He said, yes. He goes, terrible. And he says, I mean, it was very daring of me. He could have said, who cares? Like, who are you? And he said, you know what? I'm going to sing a song now on stage. It's the first time I'm singing this song. And I want you to listen to it and write me a script. And if it's good, we're going to work together and you're going to shoot the video. And I said, wow, this is amazing. And that's exactly what happened. You know, he went, he sang it, and then I wrote a script that I thought it was good. And 2 months later, we were working on a video clip for him. And it was a year later, I had already a baby. I had another baby after Navi, which was the best thing we could do, because even though it was crazy at the thought at the beginning, you know, what am I doing to myself? But it really, really helps. It heals. It doesn't take any place, but it really heals. Although I must say that I think one of the hardest moments for me was when they told me that I'm having another girl. Because really then at that point, I really wanted a boy, because I was scared. I didn't want to see somebody that looked like her. You know, I was petrified. So I remember that moment when I had that girl, I was actually very upset. You know, the whole time, Chaya, the whole time, I never said, why me? Why us? This would never came to my mind. When that girl was born, I remember thinking, okay, what are you, playing jokes with me? You're taking me one? What is this? Like, I don't understand. And now that I look back, I realize how everything is in place. You know, at that moment, I was so broken and so in pain that this little girl that I got after, which she's now 9 years old, her name is Sarah, was this little bundle of just curls and love. I promise you that sometimes throughout the years, I saw her saying things that I said, okay, this is not you. This is Navi telling me to tell me this. It's freaky. I know it sounds freaky, but I promise you sometimes she just came to say a word that I said, it doesn't make sense that you should tell me that. The boy came after, you know, when I was healed after a few years, and I could appreciate more, then came the boy. Let God work his own way. I'm telling you, he knows what he's doing. And so yeah, basically that video clip, which was done as I was nursing my Sarah, it really launched my bitachon atzmi, like you say, my self-security, to get back into the system and say, you know what, I am broken inside, but I still can do something, and I will give it all I can. And as I told you, I started writing, which after I started writing for the Jerusalem Post, which became, great for me. It was a big dream of mine to have my column, which is Touch of Chen, it's called. And my big dream was to have a talk show. And I said, you know what, I'm going to go for it. And I just rented a studio. I had no idea how I was going to pay for it. And my husband warned me, I'm not your bank. You have to find your own sponsors. He did help me a lot. And I just, did my first, rented a studio, had a first guest who happens to be my uncle. He came as a first guest on the show with a very interesting story. And that's it. I said to myself, I'm going to put it on the internet and let's see what happens. And I remember the 3 months later, my daughter comes to me. She goes, Mommy, you're on TikTok. At that time, TikTok, I'm talking about 4 years ago, was still, and I said, what's TikTok? And she goes, Mom, I'm telling you, your videos went viral. Basically, somebody took a piece of that conversation I had with my uncle. He was talking about how to deal with gay and lesbians. It was very strong. So somebody picked it up. They put it in Hebrew subtitles, and it just went wild. And, from one thing to the other, I got picked up by Arutz Sheva, which is, a big, big news site here in Israel. It's called Israel National News, where I have my own talk show. And I said to myself, if I'm going down this road, I also understood, now that I'm thinking back, how when I wanted to do this so much when I was younger, it wouldn't have worked out well because I wasn't solid enough and I wasn't grounded enough to understand how to deal with it. I would have done wrong choices. It's very easy in this business to do wrong choices and to take the after what I've been through, and I was much more grounded and I had the goal. Now there's Navi. Now there's one direction. And just a second. אני עובדת. I lost my last line. I'm used to when you're in my own talk show.
Sorry, I was muted. You were saying how you were more. I was talking. You were saying how you were more grounded now.
Yeah,
you never have been able to be what it is today.
Yeah,
because you were amateur.
Yes, so true. I would have taken the wrong decisions. I would have been blurred by the fantasy of the glamour and attracted to the glam and the whole, glam side of this business, which it's not real. And now at a later age, after what I've been through, it was a completely different thing for me. I had one goal. I had made to make Navi happy. And the Rebbe was my lead. I remember the first time I went on the show on Arutz Sheva, I decided to, between all the guests I could have thought, I decided to have the shliach of Rehavia, Rabbi Goldberg, who had actually a situation that he wanted to talk about his Beis Chabad. And everybody was telling me, are you crazy? You're starting your show on Arutz Sheva with a Chabad shliach? Like you ruined your career before you even started it. And I said, I want to start with the right thing, okay? And I remember that I told the editor that I'm going to bring this guy, and he said, look, if you think it's the right thing, we'll go with it. Let's see how it goes. And usually when you come on the show, they put on the screen behind you a picture that's connected to the guest. If you're talking to an actor, they're going to put Hollywood. If you're talking to a shliach, they're going to put a picture of the Rebbe. So I walked in the first time on my show, I see Real Talk with Hadassah, and I see a picture of the Rebbe, and I said, okay, this is exactly how I wanted to start. And this has become a joke for the past 3 years in Arutz Sheva. They all make fun of me because they're very pro Chabad. I'm not saying anything. But every time I have a conversation or an interview with anyone, I'm always trying to talk about the Rebbe in the end. And they're always going like, cut it, like this is not a Chabad house. But I always manage to sneak in about either Chabad or Mashiach. It gives me good feelings. And you know what? The guest, whoever it is, always takes it in a good way. They always have something. Oh, you know what? I did meet the Rabbi. There's always something. So this is my lucky charm, I call it, even though they make fun of me. And because I believe in it. And
they're only making fun of you because they don't know.
Exactly.
What we have.
Exactly. It's true. Very true. And I've spoken last year, 2 years ago. And I sure. 2 years ago, I went on a tour, a European tour, and I told my story, and I worked with Chabad houses around Europe, and the craziest story. I mean, everywhere I went, it was also this inyan of divine intervention. The more now it's so clear, living in Israel, everything is divine intervention, like everything. We are just alive by divine intervention. But before the war, how every little thing, I went to speak to this Chabad house in Holland by the Shluchim, and I'm sitting in this crowd with 25 people in this tiny town in Holland. It's called Den Haag, which my grandmother comes from my mother's side. And because my grandmother was Dutch. And I'm sitting there with 20 people, totally not connected one to each other. One is Chinese, one is Dutch, one is Israeli, like the weirdest crowd I could ever have. And I'm thinking to myself, how am I going to put some emotions in such a different crowd? There were maybe 3 or 4 people who knew about religion or anything. And the Dutch people are pretty cold. It takes a little, a lot to make them like warm. And I'm thinking to myself, how am I going to go through this? And I'm talking about Navi and about divine intervention and about everything. And I'm trying to move them. And, I said to them, I really believe that sometimes I see signs, which is absolutely true. I mean, I'm not crazy. Like I'm telling you again now, signs that I see them. Okay, this was sent by her. I know it. As a mother, I know it and I feel it. And I'm telling this to this crowd. I'm telling, believe me, I didn't drink this morning. I promise you. And suddenly a woman who's sitting in the crowd interrupts. Usually like the questions were at the end, like we had a question and answer session, and she just like raises her hand as I'm talking. So I'm thinking to myself, oh my gosh. I said, how can I help you? And she tells me, so suddenly this woman raises her hand and she says, can I tell you something? And I say, yes. And she goes, my name is Navarut, which was my daughter's name. And I literally froze because, Chaya Mushka is a very common combination. Menucha Rachel is a very common combination. Navarut is not a common combination. It's two names that were picked by us. So to say that she had the same name as my daughter there, sitting there, it was just a moment. I started crying. She started crying. Everybody started crying. The whole room just, exploded. We were just sitting around. We said schmoozing with Dutch people. It doesn't go together. And suddenly we were all schmoozing and talking and crying. It was very special. So I believe that everything that, everything you say, everything has a reason. I always say if any of part of my story can help somebody else, even one person, I'm just, I've done my job. I also mentioned you that I did this video, which is a conversation with another woman who lost a child, which happens to be a very good friend of mine. And I did
The letter. She gave you the letter 2 years before, right?
Yes, that's the same. That's the girl. Exactly. Very good. So we're neighbors and we're good friends. And I lost my daughter after 1 year of seeing her deteriorating until she passed away. And she lost her daughter in a second in a car crash, in a car accident, um, under her house. It was pretty brutal. So we finally got together and I said, let's have this conversation, open conversation of two mothers who lost their child in different ways, and how we're reconnecting to the way I through a year of sickness and she through a second away. And we had this open conversation where we said we're going to discuss about everything, Black humor, marriage, everything is going to come out. Okay. And there were tears and there were laughter. Believe me, I had the crew here in my house and we were already like 11 o'clock at night and we couldn't start before 1 o'clock because we had to drink before literally to, get this together. And it was amazing. It was amazing. Our conversation was so good, so real, so raw. And we just put it out there again, for anyone who needs this, anyone that can help. We did it on my daughter's birthday. But what happened is that I think 3 years later, I went to a wedding in New York, and this lady comes over to me and she tells me, are you Hadassah Chen? And I said, yes. I thought she recognized me from the Arutz Sheva. And I said, yeah, you based actually I am a student in a university where we're taking psychology classes, and your video of your conversation with the other mother was given to us as homework to listen to. The teacher said this video is better than 10 psychology classes altogether. So I was blown away, because this is already gives me the answer that maybe we did something, good in that conversation. Us, it helped a lot. And if it helped us, it helped others. And I hope that we can manage to share also a part of the conversation. We can put also the address, like the link.
Yeah, we're going to put the link for those of you that are listening to the recording now. There's going to be a link on the YouTube channel that you can watch it. I actually watched it. We postponed the class. I kept saying, I need 10 more minutes. I need 10 more minutes, because I was watching it and I couldn't put it down. I still have another 20 minutes left to the recording. It's about almost an hour and a half and or more, something roughly. And it's beyond. I always ask my friends, because I have friends that have lost. They lost their father. Some of them lost them quick, and some of them lost them slow. And I said, what's better? And they both had, like, they are weighing their, the pros and cons. I mean, obviously, to ask someone a question like that, you have to be very close. You can't just ask anyone a question off the street. But you have to know if you can ask. And we're going to talk to Hadassah soon of what she appreciated and what she doesn't appreciate, what people have said to her in the past, just to help everyone to how we can be there for people who are grieving. But we are going to be putting in the inbox. You're going to see it in the description on the YouTube channel, the link. And I highly recommend everyone should watch it and to subscribe to Hadassah's YouTube channel. And she'll share a little bit about more what she does, but she does incredible work. And I'm so proud, because I'm like, we're related.
Yeah,
yeah, I'm a secret fan. So it's very special to see what someone can become. Pain can bring out the best of you or the worst of you, and it brought out the worst of you, and it made you really, we named this class Living a Fulfilled Life After Loss, and that's exactly what you're doing. And when your daughter comes back very soon with the coming of Mashiach, you're going to have so much to show her what you did for her in her honor. And every day, you said you make a birthday cake, you have a birthday cake for her on her birthday. Please tell us when her birthday is so we can all celebrate it together, the day of her birth.
This was taught by Hindle to me. This was, we exchange recipes of happiness and sadness.
When is your daughter's birthday?
She was in Hebrew, it's just getting
So you said, sorry, I cut you off. You said it's Yud Beis Elul?
Yes, I was getting confused with my other dog. Yes, Yud Bet Elul. And no, but you were saying something very important. Yes, how I do everything for Navi, but how did it's not, when you say, yeah, you're doing everything, it's not easy to, I remember after it happened that I was, sitting in my house with my kids. It was, it was a very hard time, trying to pick ourselves up. You don't know where to put yourself. You don't know where to hide, literally. And suddenly one day I thought to myself, is this what she's seeing? Like, I tried to put myself up there. She sees me broken, crying, desperate. And she's not going to be proud of me. Like, this is the family I left? No. And that's when it just was clear to me. No, I want to be amazing. I want to be smashing. I want my kids. In fact, if I ask my kids now, my daughter's 19. When we talk about Navi, she only remembers like good things. We always have good memories. We talk about her, we smile, we light candles every Shabbos, and with a list of all the people that need healing and everything, we always say like Shabbat Shalom, Kilu, we remember her name. We don't obsess about it. I don't have my house full of, pictures of her. But all the memories of her are good memories. And even if she lived a very short life. And this is what pulled me. Also, I was telling you about listening to conversation of other families next to us who had no money. And I remember seeing a lot of organization coming to us in the hospital. As I told you, Zichron Menachem is an incredible organization in Israel. They help families. They take care of the siblings. They take them. They have a phenomenal place here in Beit Vegan where they have music rooms and recreational rooms, and for the mothers and for the siblings. But I thought to myself, what about money? Like, these families need money. They don't have. They were discussing how we're going to buy food for Shabbos for the other kids. So when Navi passed away, I said, you know what? I want to do this. I want to help families that need money. And we worked at the beginning with Zichron Menachem. They would give us the worst cases when there's a family that has no money and they have a lot of kids in Israel. There's a lot of cases like that. And there's one child who's sick and you don't know where to come from. And we started raising money for these kind of families. And I remember the first family we gave the money to, which was a very bad case. The son was sick and the house was terrible and there was no money for anything. And you don't bring it to them directly. You do it through a social worker because they won't even know what to do with it. There's so much going on. And they were telling me, thank you, thank you. And I was looking at them and I was thinking, thank me? I have to thank you. You are fulfilling my daughter's, there was light. And this is what I tried, we try to do all the time, in her daughter's name. So I think also to do something in a memory of somebody that you lost is incredibly helpful. You really feel the person alive because you're doing it in her name or in the person's name.
So is there a link that I could also post for people to give to this?
Sure, sure.
We always like to bring out, it's not just a story that we listen to, it's like, how can we be part of this incredible story and be part of this merit of, giving in honor of your Navi. And every time you give a coin up here, it reflects upstairs. She gets brownie points. It's like that Mario game that used to play, and they used to go, you have to go higher and higher. But that's exactly how a soul is. That's how it was described by many, it says it in the Sfarim, and, if you look into it. But it's pretty amazing. Now, during this time you were falling apart, did you have any outside help? Did you go to healers, mikubals to help you cope?
Okay. I never went to psychologists, psychiatrists, nothing, none of these kind of things. My parents were very helpful. As much as we could help each other, my husband was also very helpful, even though he also needed help. My writing was what healed me big time. Definitely. I was pouring out. I found this talent which I had hidden within me, and the writing was an incredible source of strength. Everything was coming out and it was healing me. I started, as much as I could, learning whenever I could. Hasidus helped me a lot, a lot. It's like, if people would know what Hasidus is, it's just like, it's like air. It was giving me air to breathe. Air, absolutely. I had no air, and that was my air. It was making me breathe. I remember we went once to a Makubal who was very close to my family. A week before, this is very interesting, a month before she passed away. She was pretty bad then. I don't know, that month before, I was literally, I don't know where to go. I had to literally walk out every night and just get my head, like, you see your child going every day worse and worse. There's nothing you can do. So I went to this makubal, and he lives in Meshar. I'm a very interesting person, and he looks in your hands basically. And he literally, it's freaky. He sees, like, it's like he's watching a movie. He tells why I believed him, because he said things about me that he could have never ever known. And he said it in front of my face. Like, it was pretty scary. And then I told him, I said, he sees, your daughter is sick. He knew it and everything. And I'm, poor man. He has this woman who's, holding her hands in front of me, like, tell me she's going to be alive. What are you going to tell me? And he told us, I don't see a tragedy. So I left this place thinking to myself, that's it. I'm coming home. It's just going to be bad and better. And that's it. Everything's going to be finished. He doesn't see a tragedy. And, a month later, she's gone. The day after it happened, he came. He doesn't usually come to people, but he came to us. We were sitting Shiva. It was one of the first ones, and he called us. And I was looking at him like, you liar. How could you say that? So I was like a bit of a distance, And he looked at me, his very sweet eyes, and he said, when I told you that I didn't see a tragedy, it's because I knew that you had the strength to get over this and not make this the tragedy that's going to drag you down. You're going to survive it, and you're going to, whatever he saw, he didn't see, I don't know what, but those words were so strong in that moment. He said, you're going to take this and you're going to make it strong. And it was pretty powerful what he said. And I think that's, I'll tell you one thing, Chaya, that I shared also with him in that conversation. It's that I have only one fear. And the fear is that, some mothers who've lost their children, I don't go to all these groups like mothers who have lost and everything, because it's weird to say, it's going to sound weird. I'm not suffering. And when I say this, people look at me like, are you normal? And sometimes it scares me. But after it happened, it took a while. I'm not in a place where I'm suffering. Yes, I have an emptiness in my heart that's going to be forever. That's whatever I will have, it's never going to be fulfilled. But it's like I'm in. I said I'm in a good place now. I found my new me. I mean, it's like I made peace with myself and what I went through. I don't have anger. I don't have bitterness. I'm nostalgic sometimes, or when we take pictures of I hate taking pictures of families. I don't like it because I feel like, no, this is not okay. But we take pictures of families because we're family. And I always feel like every time we take pictures, I have this weird feeling, there's something missing, there's somebody missing. And I'm always counting, like I don't have 12 children. And so these things, but I'm not, some women still suffer a lot. So some people say, my daughter was older, she lived longer. I respect everyone's pain. My daughter was only 2 years old. Other daughters or children were older. I can't compare it to what people are going through now with soldiers dying. I don't even go there. And when I go to Shiva, people that lost a soldier or whatever, I'm looking at them and I'm thinking to myself, I'm sorry, I don't know. And they look at me like, but you know how it feels. Yes, I do. It's true. But again, I'm trying to feel and be so fulfilled and happy all the time that I'm not suffering. I'm scared. I live in fear that chas v'shalom, you were so strong, it could happen again. Chas v'shalom. So it's my happiness that is my fear now, because I came from such a low place where I thought I lost everything. I thought I was going to lose my family, my husband, my children, my everything. And now I'm just like, do you know what I'm saying? It's hard to say. And so the only thing I can say is just to give strength to these people. There is a light. There is a light. And I hope it stays there forever. I'm a very positive person. That's the truth. If you say, how do I see the cup? Do I see it half full, half empty? I see it overflowing, which is not good always. Sometimes you're like, you're ridiculous. What kept me through the hospital days, which were impossible, the fact that I thought my daughter's going to be okay when she wasn't okay at all. But I thought she was going to be okay till the last second. I thought she was going to be okay. And when she left, maybe I wasn't really believing it at the beginning. And then, we go now, we took the kids, it took time until we took the kids to her caver. And we put, her stones, we talked to her. She'll have an angel guarding me up there. And whatever I can do to fulfill myself, my kids, my children, and to give her nachas, this is what I do. That's all I
So
can do.
I don't know if you heard this, but I was told, you know, I did a lot of soul searching on afterlife. When we're happy down here, it reflects upstairs. So it makes the neshama happy. But when we're sad, it makes your loved one very sad. So you're giving a gift to your daughter Navi because she's able to be where she's meant to be. She's back in her with Hashem. And if you're in a place where you're not content, then she's not content. So it's almost like she's also giving you a gift because she's also showing you that she's content, because if she wasn't content, you wouldn't be happy. So it's almost like a energy, see it like energy, like you guys are sending messages, secret messages, coding, like she's happy, you're happy. And, obviously it's process and it's hard. Like you said, you went through the morning while she was alive. Like you went through it all. It was really, really hard. But
Yeah.
after, it was like also finding yourself, and it's, I don't wish it on anyone, but if something happens to you, it's really for you, and Hashem knows what he's doing, like you said. We don't see it in the darkness. Like right now with October 7th, we're all mourning. The Jewish world, we're all in pain and mourning, and we don't see the light just yet, but we have to be the light in the darkness. And it's interesting. I feel that only you can say how you feel, like you experienced what you did. And I would love to know, like, we have viewers, we have people. I like to call this class, it's almost like the Kotel, where every kind of Jew comes onto this class. We have it picked up worldwide. We have all over the states and countries. It's pretty incredible. We usually do a roll call, but since this is a pre-recording, we're not going to be doing that. But after the class, everyone will tell me where they're watching it from, and I'll send it to you. So please send me a message so I can send it, so you can see how far reaching this class actually is and your words are. But what message would you like to give as someone that's in mourning, what you appreciated, what you don't appreciate, people that come to Shiva houses, like how should they be? Is there anything that was said to you that was hard for you? Was anything that was said to you caused you, extra, like gave you an extra hug without giving you a hug? Like what did you share with the world today?
Yeah. Can you just pause a second? I just want to put the charger. Great question. Great question. Sometimes you just want to take somebody and no, this truth is that during Shiva, it was very hard for people. I saw a lot of people literally coming, crying to me, trying to hide their tears. And in the moment, I hated them. I said to myself, how dare they cry in front of me? How stupid. But now looking back, Miskanim, like we said, they felt so bad. They didn't know what to do with themselves. So, at that moment, that was really bothering when people like really, oh, I'm so sorry, and start crying. But it's nature, of course. Now when I look back, I understand them. But there's one question that you can ask a lot of mothers, they'll probably answer the same, that I hate till now. It's when people ask me, how many children do you have? That's the question. Because I used to say, I remember the first time they asked me, I said, okay, with Navi, I would have 5. I say 4. And my daughter, I remember, was standing next to me. She goes, huh? Like, how dare you say 4? Why I say 4? Because if you say 5, they say, oh, so who's missing? I'm not going to tell you the whole story, you stranger, I don't care. But from that moment on, when I saw my daughter's reaction, I said, how dare I? She's my daughter, okay? She's not here present, and but she's my daughter. So now I always say 5. And if they say, there's someone missing, I say, yeah, well, she's not here right now. That's all. If I'm not bothered, it came with exercise, but it's still a question that every time I hear it, I'm like, oh gosh, it's hard. It throws me off a bit, which is not the person's fault. They're just asking a simple question. When I was in hospital, they used to come friends used to sneak in the hospital and bring me, like, I brought you smoothie, I brought you this, I brought you that. And I'm like, oh, just go away. I was so insecure and so low that I felt that everybody had pity, but yet everybody just wanted to help. Of course, they had pity on me. A poor mother trying to save her daughter. What should they do? They were just trying to help. I know it happens this to people who, are in a bad situation, and they very hard to, I mean, I'm a very much of a giver. To receive is not so easy, it throws you off. You have to learn also how to receive. People, there's nice people who just want to help. Very simple.
Sorry, I was muted. Yeah, I hear that. Like when you go to Shiva houses now, do you feel like you're able to help people because of what you went through?
For sure. Yes. I used to be the worst person to go to to comfort people. No, not at all. I was a disaster. Now it's like I have an extra button. I know, it's like an extra sense. We have six senses. We have seven senses now. So, I went to see the mother actually of a soldier who died before October 7th. And she was actually in school with me a long time ago. So I went to see her. And it just like the moment she heard, everybody was sitting there. I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry. And the moment I told her, we were in school together and I lost a child also, she's like, oh, like we have a language. She opened to me. So the moment she opened to me, I opened to her. But again, when you have, it's also different ages. It's everybody has its own, I think to myself now, I look at my daughters, who are older. Of course, it's sometimes it comes to my mind if it would have been this or that, it's the bad moment, the bad jokes, in your brains. It's very hard. We can't go there. We can't, everybody gets their own story. Nabi was two. We have friends who are older. This doesn't mean you don't have to suffer. I'm saying this because I had this friend of mine who lost her daughter when she was 19. And when I tried, and we were very good friends, we're still, and she's much older than me. She was my mother's friend, and she was a woman who inspired me always so much. And she always came to help me in the hospital and everything. Her daughter was sick, but she survived until she was 19. And 19, she passed away. And she was broken in a million pieces, broken. When I went to her after my Navi passed away and I told her, like, I feel, I'm with you now. She looked at me and she said, but my daughter was 19. Like, what would you know? Your daughter was only 2. And in the moment, she really hurt me. But then when I told her, I didn't say anything in the moment. I said, the woman is suffering. There's nothing I can say to her. But after we spoke about it, because she's such an amazing woman, I told her, you heard me then. She said, I don't know, how did I say that? A daughter's a daughter, It's just different ways, different ways. I'm telling you, I feel
Everyone reacts differently. So, and she wasn't aware that she even hurt you. So it was so big of you to go back to her and to tell.
Absolutely, absolutely, absolutely. There's so many families now who are broken around us, so many, that I feel like a little drop in this sea of pain. But again, as you said, Chaya, you asked me to tell my story, which I haven't said in about more than a year. I haven't said it because I haven't been around speaking anymore. And of course, since October 7th. And just saying it back and bringing back all these emotions and memories in me every time, it's just so powerful and so strong. And the fact that, like you said, if I'm sure somebody can relate to something that I said, and whether it's a part of the shidduchim, whether it's a part of the airport, or getting married late, or being overweight, or losing a child, something is there. We can always all be connected, and I just hope that my sharing the story brought some laughter, some tears, some emotions, and
My favorite was my
tried to
great
reconnect
uncle.
myself.
How what he did. I'm laughing because it's such my grandmother's brother. That's something she would do. Like they had
Yeah,
no,
totally.
no, like that's but he, at the end of the day, he made it happen.
You
I met,
did.
I went to him in Israel, and he was very emotional, and he was so touched that I came to visit him, and I'm so happy that I did. But he was like crying a lot, and this is closer to his end of his life, and he was just
Wow.
wonderful human. And we didn't know each other, but we knew each other. You know what I mean? So
Sure.
it's pretty incredible. And you know, he is your shop, he is your matchmaker, his official one,
Yeah.
because he, you know,
There
um,
were a few, but he took a big part, definitely.
huge part. The one that closes the deal. It's like a business deal.
Oh
He
yeah,
closed that deal, and
you know how these Russians are. You know very well.
also you can never say no to a Chen.
No, absolutely, absolutely.
I mean that generation. So I'm sure like your husband was like, oh, okay, I'll go out, you know, and just that was hysterical.
He was put back in place. Let's put it that way.
So you mentioned something, and I think it's important to elaborate a little if you're comfortable. You said that, you know, everything was falling apart, and when people are going through pain, sometimes that's when you have a lot of, you know, conflict in marriages and shalom bias. What advice would you give someone that's listening? Hopefully, no one is going through pain, but unfortunately, we are. It's gullus and going through a hard time in your marriage. You know, dealing with the child, making decisions. What would you tell our audience? What would you tell the world, now that you are so much more polished and wiser and smarter? Like, how would you deal with it more today to, you know, you can, instead of going through the bumps, you can get through it more smooth? What's something you would want to share with everybody?
I think that going through the bumps helps you find after the smoother way, although these are pretty big bumps. And as I told you, yes, there were moments that I thought to myself, that's it, my marriage is over. Because you are so, you know, enclosed, each one in their own pain, and there's no space for anything else. You don't want to love, you don't want anything. But there, if the base is strong, if the base between the two of you is strong, um, it has to survive. Not only it will bring you closer in the end. Of course, there is that moment where it's hard, and it's hard by everybody, and you have to go through it. But how much your strength, your base is strong, your respect for one another still exists, which is the main ingredient for a strong marriage. So even if you're not the way you look, because you are, as in my case, I was overweight, and you know, you're sitting in a hospital, you don't look good. I remember though my husband telling me, I want you always to, you know, put on um, makeup and look nice when you come to Navi. You know, you don't come walk inside the room looking like a schmat. No, she has to see you nice, dressed, and you know, earrings, necklace, you know, looking like a mensch. And that's what I always try to do. You know, never working around in pajamas. And I have to thank a lot my parents for this, also his parents, because there was a lot of, they helped us have our moments. Sometimes they would just come in and say, leave, go away tonight. You're on your own. You have a date. And even if we were in pain and we know our daughter is suffering in the hospital, we would go out and we would find each other again. We were like holding on to these moments that were giving us back some breathing time for us, you know. And it kept us together. It really, you know, we had two other children that we had to, you know, take care of. And after, it's incredible how, like you said, um, right before Navi passed away, I thought my husband was going to lose it. He was out of himself. I was very much in control. Why? Because Navi was on me the whole time. So I had her. She was mine. I knew exactly, you know, how to handle the situation. She was okay. I felt like she was gonna be okay with me. She wouldn't go to my husband. She wouldn't go to anybody. So my husband didn't know what to do with himself. I mean, the night before, I thought he was gonna, you know, jump from the roof. I don't know what to do with myself. Like, she doesn't come with me. I don't know how to relate to this child that I'm losing. And I didn't know what to do for him. I know. I said, I remember that the night before at 4 in the morning, I told him, go buy milk. Go out and buy milk. I need milk. And he went to buy milk. I saved his life, I think, just by telling him, get out of the house. The moment Navi left us, I lost it, and he was in control. Because suddenly she was me and she was gone. And now he was taking over. He was telling me, go this, do that, you do that, you're gonna come with me. Somebody was controlling, and I was just, tell me what to do and I'll do it. I'm following. So I think there has to be a balance that, you know, shifts all the time. Who takes control and who follows? It's not always you following and he's controlling. Sometimes you're controlling and he's following. But when this shift blends well together, that's when it can really survive. You know, when you go, it's a big work, because you have to come out of yourself, out of your pain, and reach out into him. And if you manage to that, you find him. You know, your aunt, Lipsker, I did a video for them. I worked for them, and I interviewed your uncle, Rabbi Lipsker, and he told me something that for me stayed for me forever. He said, over the top. And this over the top stayed with me forever. Like, I love it. You know, it's became my motto too. When there's an obstacle, not only try to overcome it, it's not even there. You're already ahead. Think already ahead. You know, in the difficult moments, I would try and focus and think, you know, okay, it's gonna be over. It's gonna pass. Also, this will pass. When Navi was sick, they would tell me, focus and think how she's going to look when she's well, when she's 10 years old, when she's, you know, little tips here and there that help you survive. Seriously. A lot of davening also helps.
Wow, your story is extraordinary. We don't get to choose what happens to us. We only get to choose our reactions. And
Nice.
I believe that you reacted in a way that Hashem would have wanted you to. And you know, he gave you all these opportunities. You had all these, you know, your young self kind of knew what you wanted to be in. People were like kind of almost stopping you. And like you said, you met a man who was excited for your dreams to come in reality. And it was all about timing, and you made it happen. And guys, check her out. I can't wait to watch all your interviews now. She gets all these great people, high profile people. It's very heartfelt. And
it's a simple story.
The simple stories are the best.
Exactly.
And you speak the truth, which I love. You don't sugarcoat things. Like you said in the beginning, some things that some people. Thank you for sharing your gift tonight of sharing your story, because through sharing and being vulnerable, it helps people. And we want to bring more light into the world. And you definitely did. And your daughter, you know, she lived for such a short time, but everyone comes down in this world just to they have a purpose, and she had a purpose. And she finished it in such a short time. That means she was on such a high level and had such a high soul. And I'm sure she's in the best place with your grandparents and with your, you know, with the loved ones that are upstairs. And she should come back down with the coming of Mashiach. And I would love that everyone can click on the link and give something to these families that need, like, food for Shabbos, food for dinners, and Hadassah will send it where it needs to go. That's what she does. So I will post the link as well, as long with the YouTube link. And I will also post, if it's okay with you, your shows, your channel. You'll send everything to me a little later, and we'll post it all. and I really appreciate your time. And I gained so much from this myself. It was
Thank you
really
so
such a
much, Maya.
it was such a gift, and it was such a nice way of getting to know you more. So thank you.
Thank you so much. It was an honor, and I thank you for reconnecting me tonight. ממש. תודה רבה. באמת, thank
Thank
you.
you so, so much.
Shema Yisroel Adosh Eloheinu Adosh ושיננת לבניך דיברת בשבתך בביתך ובלכתך בדרך ובשוכבך ובקומך ידעתי ולא אל לא יגעתי ומצאתי אל יגעתי ומצאתי תמיד ואהבת לרעך כמוך. חי רבי עקיבא. דובר רבי עקיבא. רבי עקיבא אומר זה כלל גדול, זה כלל גדול, זה כלל גדול בתורה. זה כלל גדול, זה כלל גדול, זה כלל גדול
I'm here in Israel to do a concert in Nokia Stadium, but the biggest mission is to be a part of this video and to tell you that I say it from the heart that Mishpachat Chen, the word Chen, is either you have it or you don't. And when I saw this girl for the first time, Navarut, was somebody who's here for a very short time. And to have me as a part of her life, her short life, with my music, and Yisimcha Elokim I heard was her favorite song, and I just told the father and mother that Yisimcha Elokim, the song, will forever be a different song because she had it as her favorite song. It makes it one of my favorite songs, of course, to sing now. And I know that the parents told me, the father and mother, that they're starting a foundation to help children. They want to help children in her name. And of course, if she was here, she would say the same thing, because children are pure of sin, neshamot tehorot. And I'm sure she's up there in Gan Eden next to HaKadosh Baruch Hu. And the more the foundation does, the more mitzvot they do, the more the neshama will go higher and higher. We should hear only b'sorot tovot forever. Amen. Thank you for having me a part of this memorable video of a beautiful special child, Navarut. Alea Shalom.
Yesimcha Elokim
אפרים וכמנשה ישימי חלקים כשררי רבקה רחל ולאה ישמחה 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 אלוהים כי אפרים וכמנשה ישימי חלקים כשררי